Hello, YouTubers. This is December 18th, 2012. Tomorrow, December 19th, is my grandson's birthday. He will be 4. It's also my sister's 69th birthday. So this video is primarily directed toward my grandson. I want to give him a sense of the generations that have gone before him here in what became the United States. The first Kersey that we have reference to is John Kersey, and his son was also John Kersey, who was born in 1786. And in 1808, John Kersey, with his wife Anna Stedham, and John Kersey's dad, also John Kersey, moved from Randolph County, North Carolina, to Clinton County, Ohio, which had just been a state for 5 years, and they farmed. They settled on both sides of the Little Miami River, and they had they had 5 or 6 kids. I think at least 5 that survived to adulthood. But your ancestor was the one named Thomas Carter Kersey, and he was married in 1844 to Elizabeth Thompson. Now, he was also a physician. He became a physician. He went to, what ultimately became the University of Cincinnati Medical School. And then he had 2 sons. He had 2 children, 2 sons. Joseph Sebastian Kersey and John Kersey. There's a theme there, isn't there? Joseph Sebastian Kersey was your great grandfather, I think. Well, anyway, he's in your line, and he was a school teacher. And John Kersey, his brother, was also a physician. Joseph Sebastian married Emma Jeffries, and they had one child, one son, William Carter Kersey, who was my grandfather, and he married Catherine Tucker. Well, anyway, he married Catherine Tucker, and he was a rural mail carrier, in the horse and wagon era, and he had my dad. They had my dad, Joe S. Kersey. The S didn't stand for anything. It was just an initial, which of course caused him a certain amount of grief throughout his life. And he taught vocational agriculture and general science at Lebanon High School for 40 years. And he married Dawn Baldwin, who became Dawn Baldwin Kersey, and she taught first grade in various school systems, but primarily in Lebanon school system for 25 plus years. And they had 2 children, myself and my sister. And then I became involved with your grandmother, who at that time was called Faith Nason Diskin, but her real name was Faith Nason. And after about a year after we had your dad, we got married. And then, of course, I'm sure your dad will tell you about all that. He married your mother, Kelly Weatherby, and then now Kelly Weatherby Kersey. And And now here you are. So you're now, say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You're 9. You're nine at least that we know of. Ninth generation that's been here in North America. So I like to call you my ninth generation immigrant grandchild. The other side of this, my mother's side of it, if you will, starts pretty much about the same time, back in the late 1700s. We have a fellow named Thomas Baldwin who fought in the Revolutionary War, and as a result of that, he got a land grant in the Virginia Military District in southwest Ohio, well, southern Ohio, and he settled in what became Blanchester, Ohio. At the time he settled there, he was on his second wife. And he had 3 wives. He had 28 children by 3 wives. He wore them out. Well, the first 2 he wore out, certainly. The first woman had 7 children. He had 7 children with that woman. And the second woman, he had 14 children with that woman. And then the last one, 7 children. Now, the fellow that's directly in line in your line was the last of the 28 children, and he was born in 1836. Now, an amusing story is that when the second wife died, he kept a diary, and she died, and the entry was 28 degrees, clear and cold. So he gave the weather first, which is and he says Elizabeth died last night, and I shall miss her as she was a very hard worker. Well, I would imagine, my word, she was worn out, wasn't she? So there it is. So their youngest child, well, Thomas Baldwin's youngest child, Thomas Benton Baldwin, born in 1836, went off to the Civil War. And as luck would have it, in the first Battle of Bull Run, he was captured. So that was pretty much his combat involvement as far as the Civil War is concerned. And he went to Libby Prison. He was in the Libby Prison in Richmond. And then when they opened Andersonville back toward the end of the war, he was shipped to Andersonville in Georgia. And then when the Confederates were afraid that Andersonville was going to get run over, they shipped him to Cahaba Prison in Alabama, and that was where he was liberated at the end of the war. And he went over to, when they were going to ship him home, he was supposed to go on the Sultana, but there were some sick and wounded that took priority, and thank the good Lord, not for them, unfortunately, but for my relative, our relative, my great-grandfather. He missed the Sultana, which of course blew up and sunk and killed everybody, on the way up the Mississippi River. So, dodged a bullet on that one, so to speak. So he lived to be almost 2 weeks short of being 100. So he died in 1836. Now, his son, my grandfather, Clement Holloway Baldwin, was an itinerant peddler of kerosene for Standard Oil after Standard Oil had developed the purification process that kept these lamps from exploding. There were tremendous numbers of houses burning down because of bad kerosene at that time in the late 19th century and early 20th century. So he traveled around and sold this Standard Oil kerosene. The problem was that he liked to drink, and we're not talking about have a few beers. We're talking about no drinking for weeks at a time, and then go on these liquor-fueled benders where he'd disappear for a week or so and then come crawling home up the steps. So he lost this for what was considered at the time to be a very good job with Standard Oil, and became a night watchman. And then when the First World War started, he went off to Norfolk to work in the shipyards and build ships. Well, he came home in November 1918, got off the train. He says, "Stay away from me. I've got the flu." And he then went on to die of pneumonia secondary to the 1918 Spanish flu epidemic. So So that was that for him, and he was like 44 when he died. So that was 1918. So then, my mother was at that time just 8 years old, and they grew up in pretty hard times. I mean, they were pretty nearly starved. Now, she had two older sisters who were able to sort of escape. Aunt Virginia was 8 years older, so she was 16. So she fled the kingdom and got married. And then Aunt Madeline was only there for another couple more years, because then when she was 14, she went and lived with Aunt Virginia. So, but my mother was there, and she basically starved for during her formative years. Anyway, she married my dad, and they met in Wilmington College, and then got married in 1934 after 2 years after. Well, he graduated from Ohio State, and she only did the 2 years at Wilmington College and taught then. That was when you could teach with only 2 years of school. And she went off, and she finally finished her degree at Miami University in 1961. But she, over the years, taught first grade for 25 years in the Lebanon school system. So that pretty much brings us up to date. Now, of course, you know that I was born in 52, and then well, we covered that a bit, and then with your dad. So that brings the two streams together. So I just want to wish you a very, very good 4th birthday. You're getting old enough now; you can start becoming aware of this. And if the great certainty were to whisk me off away tonight or later today, maybe you will at least have had this little bit of interaction. Your dad can download it and put it on a DVD or something like that. So happy birthday. That's a day early, but happy birthday. I'm not going to sing happy birthday because I think it's a loathsome song and melody. But anyway, happy birthday, Thomas. Happy birthday, Carter. And I'm sure Thomas, my son, will be doing all the various appropriate things with this. So I hope you YouTubers have enjoyed this, those who have stuck with it. So bye-bye now. All righty.